On November 18th, the Bombay High Court gave permission for 80-year-old Varavara Rao to be treated in a hospital, saying that he was on his deathbed. Around the same time, there was another case where 83-year-old Stan Swamy, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, was asking for a sipper to be given to him since he was unable to hold a glass of water. The National Investigation Agency sought 20 days to reply to his plea. Then there is Sudha Bharadwaj, an activist and lawyer who spent her third consecutive birthday in jail after several bail petitions were repeatedly quashed by the courts. What is the common link between these three? They were all arrested and accused of committing offences under the UAPA, or the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. It's been 3 years and the trial for the alleged crimes committed by these three and many others in the Bhima Koregaon case hasn't even started yet. Yes, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA. You must have heard about this law mentioned lately in a lot of reports. From Bhima Koregaon to Kashmir to Delhi riots to Hathras, scores of people have been arrested under this law and are languishing in jail. So it's worth taking the time to go deeper and ask a few very basic questions. What is this law? What is the purpose of this law? And is it effective at preventing unlawful activities as it is supposed to? In this video, I'll try to give you some solid answers. Let's get right into it. First, let's talk about the history of this law. The year was 1967 and the government was facing some trouble related to national integrity. The DMK had only recently given up the demand for a separate Dravida Nadu, a separate country, and the government was also facing separatist elements in Nagaland and Mizoram. So Indira Gandhi's government came up with the glorious Unlawful Activities Prevention Bill and the parliament passed it as an act. Before it was passed though, a joint select committee of the parliament went through the initial draft and made some changes. But a young Atal Bihari Vajpayee was not very pleased with the result. He said in parliament, quote, "The committee was handed over a donkey so that it could be turned into a horse. But the result is that it became a mule. Now it's alright for the Home Ministry to use this mule to carry weight, but if the ministry thinks that they will sit on this mule and fight a battle for national integrity, then I humbly oppose it." Classic Atalji. So the basic purpose of the UAPA was to counter the problems of secessionist tendencies. While reintroducing the bill, the then Home Minister Y.B. Chauhan said, quote, "The bill was necessary because there were divisive forces in India and effective measures were necessary to counter them. The objective of the bill was to make powers available for dealing with activities directed against the integrity and sovereignty of India." So in 1967, multiple parties opposed this on the grounds that there were no visible secessionist tendencies. One of the biggest opponents was the Bharatiya Jansangh, the big daddy of BJP. They were afraid that the UAPA would be used to suppress dissent and prosecute the opposition. 53 years later, to say that those fears still exist would be an understatement. If anything, those fears have gotten worse. Since its passage, the UAPA was amended several times and was turned into an anti-terrorism law. This is what happened. In 2001, there was a deadly terrorist attack on Parliament. So the Vajpayee-led NDA government brought in the Prevention of Terrorism Act, or POTA. This was considered to be काफी draconian and unfair. So in 2004, the UPA government scrapped the law because it was concerned that POTA was being misused. But what they really ended up doing was that they took the provisions of POTA and shoved it into the UAPA. This was the first change in the UAPA which added anti-terrorism related provisions in it. They introduced new definitions of terrorist acts, terrorist gangs, and added punishments for new offences. The central government could now circumvent rules of evidence when it came to interception of communication. They could also declare any organization as a terrorist organization by enlisting them in a schedule without a trial or requirement to show evidence. Some of the organizations in the schedule are ISIS, Communist Party of India Maoist, Khalistan Liberation Force, Garo National Liberation Army, and Indian Mujahideen. The second amendment was in 2008 after the deadly 26/11 terrorist attacks in Mumbai. Here, special procedures were inserted for persons accused of committing offences under the UAPA, specifically terrorism-related offences. These procedures included longer police custody, longer jail time without a charge sheet being filed, and harder bail provisions. The latest relevant amendment was made in 2019 last year. The amendment was introduced with a view to overcome difficulties being faced by the national investigation agencies while investigating terrorism-related cases. Now, under the UAPA, the government was empowered to declare individuals as terrorists too. Remember how I mentioned organizations could be persecuted without due procedure of law and without having to produce evidence before such declaration? Now, this could be done to individuals as well. This amendment also gave the National Investigation Agency, NIA, powers to investigate cases under the UAPA. Right. So this is where we are. The UAPA is essentially an anti-terrorism law which allows individuals to be arrested and kept in custody for up to 90 days or 3 months with bare minimum evidence as to why they were being arrested. Additionally, the investigation agencies can take up to 180 days or 6 months to file an official charge sheet. What's more, under the UAPA, the accused will not be given bail if the first impression of the court is that they are guilty. So what ends up happening is that to keep an accused in jail for longer, the individuals can be charged under this act. And one section in the act says the accused must be informed about the grounds of arrest as soon as may be. Meaning the person who is arrested might not even know why they are being arrested, and the officer doing it can take his sweet time to inform them why they are being sent to jail. Basically, UAPA is jail without bail and without trial. Now, let's look at how effective this law is for the prevention of unlawful activities. Well, not very much. UAPA has of late been invoked against activists, student leaders, and journalists. I'll give you a few examples. Take Sudha Bharadwaj. She is an activist and a lawyer who has worked extensively for the rights of Adivasi women and workers. She was arrested by the Pune police in August 2018. They filed a charge sheet against her 3 months later in November 2018, claiming that some documents were recovered from a co-accused which prove that she is an active member of a banned organization, CPI Maoist. Among other things, the documents recovered mentioned that she attended meetings of the Indian Association of People's Lawyers, of which Bharadwaj is a vice president, by the way. She also attended a seminar in Delhi on the Misuse of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA. Ah, the irony. Then there is Umar Khalid. He was arrested in connection with the Delhi riots which happened in February 2020. The accusation is that the whole thing was pre-planned by Khalid and others. He is accused of giving provocative speeches and urging people to come out on the streets. The police have told the court that the riots were a result of a bigger conspiracy to overawe the government machinery and that the conspirators had a specific purpose, object and mandate to cause disaffection and revolt against the government of India. Heavy stuff. Meanwhile, in October, the Delhi High Court granted bail to one Faizan Khan, who purportedly sold SIM cards to one of the accused in the Delhi riots case. The court said the investigation agency's own record against him does not disclose the commission of offences under the UAPA. Khan is now the first to get bail after UAPA was added to the FIR against him. There are many others still in jail. Take another example of Kerala journalist Siddique Kappan. He and 3 others were arrested in October by the Uttar Pradesh police while on his way to cover the Hathras gang rape case. The police said that they suspected Kappan planned to create unrest in Hathras. One report indicates that after 49 days in custody, he was allowed to talk to his lawyer for the first time, but only for 5 minutes. As of recording this, the Supreme Court has refused to hear the matter on its merits and postponed it to November 20th. There are many other bizarre cases too, like in Kashmir where 10 young men were arrested under this law in September. Why? Because the police authorities alleged that they were playing a cricket match in memory of a militant who was killed last year. I mean, just imagine. There you are playing cricket one day and the next day you are in jail without a possibility of bail, sealed in for at least 3 more months. If you keep individual cases aside and look at the bigger picture, it actually gets worse. In September, the Home Ministry told the Rajya Sabha that 3005 cases were registered under the UAPA between 2016 and 2019. 3,974 people have been arrested. Of these, charge sheets were filed in only 821 cases, indicating that investigations could be completed only in about 27% of these cases. The 2018 NCRB report stated that 3,920 UAPA cases were pending investigation from previous years. 5 cases were reopened and fresh 1,182 cases were reported. This law is turning out to be a hot favorite for one particular state, Uttar Pradesh. There has been a crazy spike in UAPA cases since Adityanath took over as CM. In 2016, the state registered 10 UAPA cases. The following year, in 2017, it increased by 10 times with 109 cases. In 2018, there were 107 additional cases filed. In contrast, Goa, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Odisha, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Telangana, Tripura and West Bengal did not register any cases under the UAPA in 2018. Yes, 0 cases of unlawful activities which needed to be prevented in these states. In 2019, the most number of cases were filed in Manipur at 306, followed by Tamil Nadu at 270, and then J&K at 255 cases. The year's total of UAPA is 1,226 cases. Think about it. In some states, there are 0 cases filed in 1 year under this law, while in another, there is a 10-fold increase. Crazy town. All in all, this is what you need to understand about the UAPA. It is a law which was initially designed to curb dissent. This then morphed into an anti-terror law where people can be thrown in jail and denied bail by giving flimsy instances of attending meetings or just being present in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's literally all that is needed to invoke the act on people the governments, both center and state, don't like. The investigation agencies can then take their sweet time to collect evidence and file actual charges against them. Till then, they will rot in jail without any recourse. I don't know about you, but to me that just sounds wrong. I mean, seriously, how is this even a thing? Anyway, it's likely that you'll keep hearing about this law again and again in the near future as our triggered, offended governments keep invoking it. So keep a watch on news reports which mention the UAPA. And do me a favor, share this explainer whenever you see it. As Atal Bihari Vajpayee put it 53 years ago, if this government is sitting on this mule and fighting the battle for national integrity, then I humbly oppose it.